Oh, unrelated.
Yep. How unrelated?
Just some other message.
Do not disturb related. Anyway, who are you?
I'm Dustin. I'm checking my phone and then throwing it away.
Wow.
I'm Dustin.
Nice.
That's me. Oh, there it is. I always struggle to find my hand, but it's right here. Touching my big dumb face. Who are you?
I'm Lorraine.
You sure?
Like 80% here.
Oh, she's got a little bit of a headache.
I've had a long day.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot this afternoon.
Oh, that might be it.
Just to mess with the calendar stuff.
I want to make this work.
I mean, there's definitely a way that'll work.
I want to make this work so bad.
Anyway, I believe we're online. Have you been able to... Did it spin up on Twitch?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then. Yeah, we're online. So, hello.
We're
gonna... There it is. Always with the hand. We're gonna, mess with some video games tonight. We're gonna make them. We're gonna make them better. We're gonna tweak them. We're gonna tweak down the drain specifically. I've got our note doc from here the other week. A lot of the stuff is either done now or mostly done. I'm gonna leave the refactoring here because that's definitely not complete, so I'll just go ahead and leave that as a note. I'm gonna remove this one on propagation because I'll pretty much all that stuff is done. Like I feel like all the code that we could consolidate for the most part has been consolidated from like a series of distributed files into like a base class and a series of inheriting classes. Let me grab, just because I do want to be at least a little informative on here for anyone who happens to come by. I don't think we're going to actually mess with these scripts specifically a ton tonight, but I did want to highlight one of the things I did offline to compact this stuff together even more, which is a thing I had done in another project, Cucumber, a bunch, on some of that project's enemy scripts. But in addition to basically just like sucking up all these variables and these other functions that could have just been pulled whole cloth from a bunch of different files and like copied form into this one. I also did pull in stuff like this take damage function and this check death function. And there might be one or two more. Those are the two main ones. This drop spawn one. I think I moved this. That's the other thing I can do right now. It had to do with what levels of what needed access to certain variables. I ended up just going with this excuse me, enemy controller base class function and getting rid of the separate one that was going to be dedicated to dropping items. So I think ultimately all this stuff's going to be rolled up in here. And it's not going to be that comprehensive anyway. Based on some of the other stuff we're going to do tonight in terms of how the projectiles work. So since I remembered, I'm going to close that here, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that script, because we're not going to need it. It's gone. Okay. But anyway, yeah, a lot of the work that I did offline in the last couple days involved take damage and check death and just making sure that the stuff would still come over and could still be unique. So for example, if I go down here, and actually let's see, I wonder where Visual Studio goes. Okay, so it does go to the override function if you do go to declaration or whatever. But yeah, a lot of these functions that are in fact shared, but that will need in addition some individual like unique properties when they're called in inheriting classes. I made these all virtual, which I have found incredibly helpful with Unity stuff for a couple reasons. One is for things like this, where all the enemies are going to take damage in a similar way. They're all going to do a bunch of similar stuff, but at the end of the day, they are going to do some unique things. Some of them more than others. Whenever they do something like take a call from a take damage function. So we've got our base function here, which is going to do a handful of things by default that everything else will do. And then this is one example of an inheriting one, which I believe this is the goop enemy. The enemy controller, I believe, is the script that's just attached to the basic goop enemies, where it'll specifically set an animation state, which is a thing that none of the other ones will do, and then it just calls the base take damage to do the rest of the things that take damage already does. And these override functions are really useful in Unity specifically, because they let you... The way you can do a lot of stuff in Unity is doing that get component call to pull references from basically anything you know to exist on a certain game object and grab a reference from that so you can query its data or manipulate it. And if you wanted to make all these individual scripts and not implement them this way in like a class-based hierarchy, you'd have to do that. You'd do a more complex check where it's like you might do like a switch statement or a bunch of if-else's that are like, well, is this a jumping enemy? Is it a swimming enemy? Or, you know, however many different types of enemies you have. And then do a separate get component for each of the like parent level, like the top level scripts. I guess the lowest child, whatever. For each of the like the final class scripts, you might have to do like a separate one for each of those different types of enemies to access each of those files and then go from there. But if you do it this way and you use virtual functions, if you do a get component on this base class, so if you do a get component for the enemy controller base, and then you call those shared virtual functions from that, it will automatically call any overridden functions. Like it'll call the highest level override function you have overwritten in your like class hierarchy. So it just makes it a lot easier to do stuff like that, where you can have very diverse functionality across like different objects that are similar but not the same. And then at the same time, you can just reference one single base class for stuff like this, which is extremely useful. It just saves a lot of headaches in Unity. I think there's like, if you want to get super technical, in a way that I really am not, I think there's like a minuscule performance hit to using virtual functions as opposed to doing stuff more traditionally the other way. But in my opinion, it is totally worth it. It is so much easier and solves so many problems. And in Unity, it is a very elegant solution to things that can otherwise get really weird and into the weeds and dumb. Weeds. So anyway, and I figured I'd be a little more educational tonight. That's an explanation on all that shit. So now we're going to get into what we're actually going to do today. So I'm going to pull up this file again. So yeah, having given that explanation, I'm going to nix this line from our little to-do list here. I guess I'll leave this for now because that's on some level what we're going to be messing with soon. That was a note you made last week that we'll come back to that. I'll keep the general refactoring note here for now, that's fine. And then I guess I'll keep all this other stuff for the moment, and we'll go, let's say the 25th.
See.
We'll add some other stuff here, including did I spell that word right? Close enough. So we're going to refactor a bunch of the codes in the various projectile scripts.
Yes.
To give them a more solid, like, cohesive base that it will work similar to the way I refactored the enemies. And then we're going to
panic.
So those are our two big to-dos for projectiles. We're going to consolidate any functionality we can between them, where they have like shared functionality similarly to what we did with the enemies. In addition, we're going to build upon that by building out some new functionality within them that will basically be our containers for data that will ultimately be passed down to each of them, either when they're spawned or maybe on contact. I haven't figured that part out yet exactly, but data that's going to be passed down from Marta, from our player character, that she's going to store upon every level load based on what outfit she's wearing. Because a lot of the what we're doing here is we're building out ways to modify various aspects of how either she's going to perform or how she's going to interact with enemies by letting her equip different outfits that might change like damage or drop rates or whatever else we can think of that we can easily implement. So our baseline for this is going to be we're going to create code that'll let her change the drop rates of stuff that enemies spawn when they die, and we're going to be able to let her change the amount of damage that she does to enemies. Like that'll be like the floor of the things we're going to let her do by equipping different outfits, and then we'll work upwards from there. But so yeah, that's what's on the docket for right now.
Wow.
Any thoughts, questions, Lorraine? I type and ramble on and. Okay.
And it's been a week.
Well, let's start with.
And a very long day.
Indeed.
And I have a headache.
I believe this is the base, like, regular bubble projectile that she shoots, and then I did create. It's right here. So this is a class that I have created but have not built out in any way.
No.
So this doesn't do anything currently.
Fantastic.
But I believe it's going to be our base, either our only base class for this projectile movement, and the other ones to come that we're going to tweak to come, all the special attacks. But we might extend it more if it makes sense to divide that stuff up. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge as we continue to work on it. One thing I will say here that I think might differ a little bit from one of the some of the things we've described previously in terms of changing shit in the game is also earlier this week when I kind of got into the weeds of like tweaking the enemies and thinking. Oh, go ahead.
Look at the camera, not me.
Okay, sorry. Tweaking the enemies and making changes about where certain things are going to be processed in terms of where some of the logic is going to be isolated. I looked at the enemies and thought of like how code is built out within their scripts now and how much effort it would take to like refactor them to a large degree, basically to pull like a lot of the hit checking out of them and put it more into like other stuff like the projectiles or Martyr herself. And I just decided for now to walk away from that idea just to try to save an overhead of total effort in terms of rebuilding a bunch of code that like I think we could make it maybe a little more like this is the thing where once you have a code base, you got to decide like at what point does it make sense to refactor completely versus just put the really nice duct tape over it and call it a day. And I don't know that that's the best use of our time to extend that stuff out, especially as based on the other changes I made with these virtual functions and to extend us all from base classes. So my plan now will be instead of this take damage function taking nothing, it'll probably take like just a comprehensive like damage modifier object. So it'll be passed in a single giant thing that'll be either its own class or a structure or something. That'll just contain all kinds of variables for like how damage values might change or drop rates might change, and then we can just stuff whatever else we want into a thing like that, and then basically within like take damage here or this check death function or like any other functions we might add to the base here, we can just create one or two like really big catch-all functions that'll check for the state of all that stuff as it's passed in, kind of in one giant like blob of information, and do it on this end, and basically change very little of the overarching like collision check, like basically very little of the code that causes these take damage functions to be called in the first place, which I think will probably work out for the best.
I actually have a fun little anecdote from earlier this week. So I've been going through training. Mm-hmm. Next week I'm going to be starting as a pottery decorator at Greenfield Village in their pottery shop. Mm. And so I'm a very far-reaching outlier there. They're all like history majors and other stuff, and I'm just up in there as a computer science, engineer-ish type, whatever, STEM, as opposed to like you're not gen eds. I don't know. I can't think of words
Liberal
right
arts.
now. Sure, that one. And so on Tuesday at lunch, when I've been sitting with my three other classmates who were up there in this presenter class, and they were asking me like, oh, like, what do you do? And so I was kind of giving them a breakdown. One of the guys he comes from a fairly engineering type family, so he's like, oh, I've dabbled in like C++ a little bit. I'm like, I normally do C#. He's like, well, what's the difference? And I'm like, well, it's like object oriented. And I give this great example about like a cup as an object, and then it like moving on to like, oh, a thing like a mug might have like a different set of properties, but it's still a cup. And they seemed to get it, and I thought it was clever.
Neat.
I thought I was being smart, flexing
I like
a little
it.
bit. I also had the one staff member who was teaching the class say that coding is a form of art, and I'm like, yes, it does. She's like, it needs some kind of creativity to it, and I'm like, it absolutely does. So I was like, thank you for appreciating this horribleness I slog through out of choice.
That's funny. In that example, did you use the description of like parents and children, or did you just kind of describe the way like inheriting characteristics works?
It was, I didn't really say anything about like inheritance. It was just kind of like, well, this is a cup. Like I held up the cup I literally physically had there, and I was like, well, you might have like a mug that has properties like, oh, it regulates temperature and stuff like that. So kind of like, and then I was like, but it still also has all the same properties of a cup. So it was kind of like a vague like pseudo inheritance type whatever, as opposed to like
I was just curious.
really getting into like then you just use the colon and then you just make and I can't
for whatever reason internally I've always thought about like classes and inheritance and all that stuff as like a from the bottom up kind of thing in my mind. Like this is in my mind, like class inheritance is like a skyscraper where the lowest level of it is at the bottom, and then as you go up, like each floor is kind of built on the next one. But whenever it's described pretty much like almost universally in like a textbook context or classroom context, they talk about it flowing like kind of from the top down in terms of parents like passing on their traits to their children.
I think I view it more like you, where you're like building off of like there's the base and then here's the next level.
I don't know if that makes me an idiot or a weirdo or both, but like that's in my mind. That's how it like I usually say like when I say the thing below this in the inheritance tree, what I actually mean is like something that is inheriting, that the current class I'm referring to is inheriting from, not that it is passing on traits to. But again, that's just like, that's where my brain goes for some reason. That's why the way I visualize it.
My brain is on vacation right now.
That doesn't really have anything to do with anything.
I
just like wanted to let you know how weird I am. But anyway,
this chair.
All right, so Lorraine, this is where I'm probably going to need the most help from you in terms of just like
you want cognitive functions. That's
dissecting the stuff and knowing like what, because these, now that I'm looking at these, because I really hadn't glanced at any of these scripts before we got in here. I just knew this was the next thing I wanted to tackle. These kind of look like almost completely different from each other, and different from. Because, like, the basic projectile one has, like, its own collision detection call here.
It's because it has an animation that's different if it hits something to hurt and if it doesn't.
Okay.
Woo.
Oh, that makes sense. I guess I could do that in something else, too. That's fine.
Who missed?
Huh? No, just the, like, spinning up these. Like
because that's how you get the animations to end like, and death.
I give a thumbs up to this. That's fine. That's a good.
It's how it works, because you can't check to see if an animation ends with this thing. That's just not how it works. So that's the duration of the animation. Mm-hmm. They're both 55 seconds. I don't know. However long that is, I tested it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little over half a second.
You're a little over half a second.
Anyway, guess that all makes sense. I'm just sorry. Now I'll get quiet because I'm just thinking. I'm letting my brain.
I'm quiet, but I'm not thinking. Nothing is happening.
So
upstairs.
then, at the end of the day,
it's completely off. All the lights are off. Like, people cleared out hours ago. It's a holiday weekend. There's no one home.
Because like I had said, originally my thought, if we were going to do a wholesale refactoring of this, it would have been like, we would have a collision check here that would check to see if something collided with an enemy, and then reach out to that, and pass it, and call, take damage publicly from this, and pass a reference into it. I think what we might do instead is we'll go in here. Let me double check the thing real quick. Pull up the old Google.
Goggle.
Don't know if I want to put this in here or not. It might not matter. Okay. Maybe we'll start there, because I'm not sure. Because I could make this another class, but I don't think it's going to be inherited or inherit from anything else. Is anything mad about this thing I just did?
No, he's asking me a question about death speeds.
Wait, what? For the game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
I had to ask too.
Yeah, alright, we'll go with this for now. So we'll do... So anyway, similar to the way I had described, like I said, we'll basically work backwards using the code that we already have built. Let me find that enemy controller script again. It's right here. Oh, come on. Motherfucker. Okay. So we've got our enemy controller here. It's going to do all these take damage calls. And I'm thinking the easiest thing for... So, all right, Lorraine's check. See this checks if this checks out logically as I describe it to you. So I'm looking at one of these collision functions, which will be an either on trigger, hit or stay, or a non-collision hit or stay. And the only times any of these are going to be triggered, there's going to be a game object involved. Correct? It's going to be this thing coming into contact with another thing. Does that make sense? Does that statement I made hold water?
You said when either of those gets called, there's always going to be an object.
Right.
Something.
Mm-hmm. Because the first thing that happens in any of these is that we're querying, for the most part, is that we're querying that object for tag, and then using that tag to determine what kind of thing it is, and then doing something. But the core being that regardless of what it collides with, whether it's a wall or a piece of garbage or the player or something else, it should be a game object. That makes sense?
Yes, because it wouldn't be attached, wouldn't be noticing anything else.
Okay, so that is going to be the most basic thing that we're going to interact with, presumably any time that take damage is ultimately going to get called.
Probably.
So then I think what I'm going to have that function do is I'm going to have it take a game object.
Be careful.
And it's going to get mad at me for like a shitload of reasons.
Mm-hmm. I can do that for free if you want me to.
Okay.
Get mad at you for a shitload of reasons.
Okay, I'll go ahead and fix all these before we move on. So that makes sense to me. So that let's see. Grab you. I guess these are probably all the same thing. Perfect. Thumbs up. Still mad. Because I didn't add this everywhere. What do I call the other one? He stupidly forgets.
What are you looking for?
Okay. So no argument. This one is still missing. Perfect. Okay, I think that checks out. So I'm still gonna build this to see all this other shit. Still gonna get mad about all these that I'm about to fix. But that's fine. And then once I finish pasting all these to get the compiler off my back, I'll describe the rest of my thought process here.
Oh no. The thought process.
Some of these are named a little differently. I will say, unrelated to any of this, just off the dome while I'm just here doing busy work, I've been reduced to counting almost the minutes until our endgame tickets. So that's happening tomorrow night, for us at least. When did your sisters go? Like, do you know what their showtime was today? They're in the movie theater.
Yeah. Joyous.
Oh, I screwed all these up.
Good job!
There's other in this whole.
I need to remind myself not to, like, really go near
Yeah, man, fuck the internet.
your Twitters or your Facebooks. Because I don't want to be by that merp. It's not right now. Oh. It's a good thing I'm in such a haze. Oh, and keep you in space later. Not in the space that will be
Okay,
in tomorrow.
so I think with this, I finally got them all. And luckily, we shouldn't have to fuck with this shit much more now. That was the whole point of the thing I'm about to say to you at this moment. Okay, so that's good. So basically, every time we take damage, we're just going to pass a game object reference through to that function, and then that's at the end of the day. That's where all our logic is going to take place.
I am taking damage.
In terms of what to do. So if we go back over to this enemy controller base,
blue mental drain.
and this is where we'll add and I'll probably add it to check death too, but I'm just gonna put a comment here that's like
to do die. Same.
Okay. So we're going to add a function call here that's basically probably also just going to take this game object reference that's going to, and maybe two, well, we'll see. Because basically what I ultimately want to do at either just in take damage or in both take damage and check death is we're gonna add a function that checks, it's going to look for, similarly to how I said we could reference these functions by calling like the base class of the enemies, in this case the enemy controller base. We're just going to check to see if whatever object has just come in contact with this thing has a Marta attack projectile base, which is going to be our base class for all the attacking things going forward. And if that's true, it will contain a copy of this structure that'll have a bunch of stuff set up in it. Yes.
Look at the camera. Stop looking at me.
Look at this camera. I can't lean quite that far.
Camera. Not talking to my camera. You've got your own. Leave my camera alone. I'm spinning it.
So yeah, we'll check to see if that's true.
It's not.
And if it is, we're gonna do a bunch of stuff, and then we'll actually like apply, because right here it says like just health minus and damage is true. It'll be basically we're gonna place at minimum this single like decrementing value with a more complex thing.
Gross.
Based partially on what data we passed in here. But I hope that made sense. Lauren, did that make sense to you?
It's gonna check to see if the base class is there, and if so, it'll do some more garbage.
Mm-hmm. In fact, we can go ahead and do
garbage.
Let's just do this here, because we might get rid of some of this, but just for the sake of argument, since I can put it...
If farts, then butts. Coding.
I'll leave the damage one as is for right now. I guess for the sake of argument, I want to...
I was like, why is the if so mad? But there's no condition. That's why it's so mad.
Type. What's it called? It's that. It's the thing I just wrote. There. It's that. And then we'll just do an...
You realize that's not always going to be true, right? Oh, okay.
That'll work, right? Or actually, what we really want is that. So if it didn't find one, it's just going to do this, which again, we might actually even remove this part of the if, but if not, that's fine too. Else, do the other thing.
Do the butts.
Okay, that should be good. Yeah, we might move this bool down here as well. Or not. I'm not sure about that actually yet. This whole if might go away at some point, but for right now, I think just this if statement itself illustrates. I'm going to move this all up into the else here too, because that's really where this is going to happen.
Put it in the else.
And then, to save us from checking this again, we can probably, within...
Panic. All right. Great. Sign me up. Yeah. Do you like me drumming my fingers?
And then check death here. We can probably add...
Panic. Got it.
Can we?
No.
And I guess it'll just be null either way.
Maybe. Gosh darn it.
Don't copy and paste well enough. similarly, okay, I think that'll do. I might have to do some other checks there too at some point, but I mean, ultimately that data, if it exists, is going to have to get passed down to the death function as well, because the death function is going to ultimately call the like spawning shit function, and that function is going to be need to be aware of any of the stuff that's going to be in that object, going all the way up the chain of logic. So, okay, now that we've laid all of that groundwork, let's go back over to our new projectile base class here. I'm going to get rid of these for now, just to put them out of my mind and make them green. I'm not sure if this will need a start or an update or not. Probably not. Almost certainly not an update. Probably not a start either. Any of the starts are probably going to come from inheriting classes anyway. So, Lorraine.
Yes.
Help me brainstorm. What do you think we need? And I made another little... Let me see if I have that document open over here. So I have this other document I had typed up on my own time that has like just the basest thoughts of what kind of information we might want to store in this thing and pass along. The type of object that it currently is, I think that probably makes some sense. Just in case, like because we might want to have these behave different ways or apply some different properties, or we might just want the enemies to know that. Do you think that makes sense as well? So, like, for example, if I put, I guess it doesn't matter where I put it. I guess since I called this one projectile, even if some of them aren't strictly projectiles, I guess I'll stick with the name convention. Nope. Does that make sense? Is something we might want to do, and then this one will contain a like I said, I don't know if that'll ultimately be valuable information or not, but let's argue that it is for the moment. So that these are the types of things right now that it could be, and this is the current type that'll be set basically when this gets set up.
What's a special attack?
So the way this would be like Marta putting up her bubble shield currently interacts with some enemies. That would be this first one. More descriptive. This would be like a regular boot projectile that you get from pushing A, and this would be anything else. Although we could further subdivide this into...
what else is there?
If we wanted to call out, for one reason or other, if we wanted to call out all the different types of special attacks, we could say like, if this is a bounce bubble or a pincer, whatever, like tweezers or a saw blade, just like how nitty gritty do we want to get. And I guess if we just leave it as like an enum like this, and we can just keep filling it up with values, then we can theoretically just change that on the fly later if we want to. And then, like I said, since this is going to be inherited by everything else, and this will be set up by the things that inherit from it, then just when that upper script starts up, it'll set this one's instance to tell it what it is or whatever, among the other things that are going to be set up inside it. Does that make sense?
I believe so.
Okay. So I guess we'll just stick with this for now. Because, like I said, we might... and then my other thought here was that in addition to something like this, I think it's kind of in this other document, but I don't remember for sure, that we might at least start off reserving the right to change any of this stuff whenever we want, with just a bunch of fucking values for example, let's go with floats, I guess. Shield's a bad example. Like that'd be a multiplier or an additive value or something, and then additionally, and that way, as these set themselves up, they'll set up all these values where, if it's normal, this one, anything related to normal will always be set to 0 or whatever, and then if it's not, these other ones will be set to higher or different values than that. So that kind of they'll all contain every single type of projectile theoretically will have an object that contains all those values within it, because we don't want to make like 5 or 6 different ones. But they're only going to have real values that we're going to measure based on what type it is, and that'll happen during setup. Basically, each time a level loads, it should set up all these correctly, such that the modifiers it has, either based on the type of object that it is intrinsically to itself, and the type of costume that Marta might have, if any. For example, if she hasn't have an outfit that we have coded, that we've determined that does extra damage with normal projectiles, then the flow of logic would be like, Marta has a costume that modifies normal projectiles, it's going to pass that value down to, the normal projectile script or whatever either every time one's spawned, or if there's some other place where it makes sense to store it, and then that value will be set in here, ultimately to set this normal damage modifier to a value, but not any other damage modifiers based on that. Does that check out? Do you have any other thoughts or ideas, or?
I got nothing. It seems okay.
I'm just like, is there anything way you think that should be different? Could be easier, or just gonna roll with this for now and just kind of see where it takes us?
Fine.
Okay. And again, I'll leave these all as like these types, and because you've scripted the health values so far to be like not ints, they're like floats and stuff, right? Which is fine. Honestly, it gives us a little more wiggle room, maybe, if you wanted to take like percentage points off of a. But I would like them to be like, we should make them uniform whatever they are, so that the health and the damage are all the same type, and we don't get like weird rounding errors if we're.
Let's round weirdly. Let's do it.
Whatever. We'll revisit that stuff if we need to. But let's see, do I have anything else on here? It's this one. Right, enemy. Yeah, let's do that.
That's how you spell float. Flout.
That'd be like do more damage to the little gunk objects that are not enemies specifically. Get rid of this too. Similarly, let's say make those different for now for gameplay reasons in case we want to do that, and we'll go I'll still just leave all these floats for now. And actually, okay, copy this over here. We'll go ahead and add. This was just an idea I had. Similarly, put that down there. Okay. You, why are you so mad? Oh, whatever. Those are fine. Warnings don't count. Warnings aren't real.
Damn.
Okay.
What a dangerous life you lead.
So does this make sense? At least for right now, in terms of things that I type up here. So it's going to store the current type.
Enemy coin drop mod.
Like I said, that's just a thought that I had that like. That by default this would always be 0, but if we wanted to give the ability for a certain costume to either make enemies or even gunks have like a low % chance to drop coins of the environment when they disappeared, I figured why not? Because my intent here for all of these is still that like whatever the current die roll is in place that drops stuff from enemies, we're going to leave that in place exactly and run it every time no matter what. And then in addition we'll just basically have like a switch or a series of ifs or whatever that checks each of these systematically. And if any of them are above 0 for these drop mods specifically, we're gonna just roll that value as is. So if you put like a 0.1 here, it'll be like a 10% die roll that it'll drop an additional the thing in question, health shield, ammo, or maybe a coin of some type. In fact, I think we should, if we do this, I think you should make another image for a type of coin that doesn't currently exist that is like a goop doing a goop thumbs up equivalent or something. That like it should look like a coin, kind of like we already have a couple variations of coin, but it should like be like related to the enemy specifically.
Now you just make me want to draw a goop thumbs up.
Well, there you go. Well, that's my pitch for why you should do it for the final product.
Well, that's happening now, so.
All right, but anyway.
This is your fault.
So like, look at these again for me. Like I said, just
Lord.
Gut check me here.
Normal damage, special damage, gunk.
So these all make sense. I think this is where we'll leave it in terms of like scope for right now. There's like
we're gonna have to go down a little bit more because I can't see the.
That should be the end of it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's just gunk for the other ones too.
Yeah. Does that make sense for like a base level? These are the things that we're gonna have costumes do on the enemy side of things.
I think so.
Okay, so this is what we'll start with. We may go more, we may go less by the time the game actually ships, but this is what we're gonna go with for now. And so then the other thing we'll do here is we'll either need to make some of these public, or we'll make a constructor and calling functions, or both.
Woof.
I'm working hard over there. Hope it comes together.
Well, you know it. I'm still drawing with my finger, so it can only go as well as that, which isn't much. And again, I'm in Paint.net, and I'm horrifically spoiled with Clip Studio Paint. So there's also that. But I'm doing what I can.
Right now we're just going to go with this. Not the prettiest, but it'll do for our prototype for the moment.
Bro, same.
Special. Health. Let's go ahead and boot. Okay. And then let's see.
It's finally raining. We did get rained on a little bit earlier today.
Okay, that'll work. fuck.
Wait, to turn caps off.
Oh, that's not what I want. Current type, that's what I called it. Okay. Again, because I'm just freewheeling off the dome here.
Dangerous.
This may not be its final form, but this is what we're gonna do for now. So I'm gonna break my own rules here. Just a tiny bit. Might even really go nuts.
Oh dear.
Because again, I don't know that this is going to stick around exactly as is, but I'm in that like zone where I'm gonna build something that'll work, and then I'll work backwards from there and maybe polish, sand off some of the harsher corners or something, if it comes to that later on. Coin. So,
And massages that don't need to be answered right now.
okay, I think that's good. Okay, so I did build basically a constructor, and I did build a bunch of accessor functions because I could have just made them all public out of laziness, but I do not want them to be modifiable on accident. So to save myself from potentially fucking that up later, this should be fine. Okay. Well, I think that's a good start for here. So let's go ahead and pass this along to at least the base projectile for now. I suspect it will not get set in any way over that. Yep, that's fine. And then what we really need to add here is pull this out, I think.
How do you feel about him?
It's not bad. You could put that on a coin.
The shot, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that checks out. You can totally see that. Not bad.
Wow. It's beautiful. He did a much better job of getting his colors right this week as opposed to last week. So that goop looks terrible from last week. What did I do?
Okay.
You don't have a type for that function. I was trying to figure out why it was still underlined red.
I think that's pretty much what we need to do. And then at least for this current one, I'll just add like a, because we're not quite doing that yet, or it won't even be in start necessarily. Alright, I'm gonna make a more macro level note that's like up here. Just a comment for now.
Didn't do something right. The whole function's still commented out.
Because this one, because it does that by itself for
That's
some reason.
weird.
I don't know why. That's when I forget it. Sometimes the autofill is not perfect.
Fantastic.
Okay. And yeah, we'll worry about the inheritance for all those other ones and stuff later. So, with all that in mind, let's maybe hop back over to here for a hot second. Just wondering where we might want to start with these. Let's even maybe start in the check death one. So we'll leave this other to do here first. And we'll go to the check death. Which is ultimately going to take us into the drop spawn. Yeah, we'll start here. So this is our our existing spawning code. Like I said, we're going to leave this exactly as is for now. And below it, just so we can even yeah, let's just, it doesn't matter a ton, but actually not even protected, it's probably just fine. It can be private. I don't think this would need to be referenced anywhere else. It's gonna need the U. Okay. So firstly, and actually I don't, the more I think about it, the more I think this check might not be necessary, but I'm going to leave it here anyway. And then if it seems like, if in the back of my mind it works, it'll be fine. After testing and just letting my brain be less stupid for a while. We'll just do that check basically every time we're accessing that. That's not that top hard. And then we'll go ahead and borrow this straight up for now. This will do. I mean, let's just go nuts. So this is an int, or I guess I could do. Actually, I don't know if this does anything other than this might only take integers. Yeah, it sure does. There are other random functions we can do, but this will be fine. So I might actually. Let's just do that right now, since this already works this way anyway. Let's just change all the drop ones.
Change the drop ones. Change the drop ones.
And then slowly Perfect. Okay. So those are going to be integers. They're going to ultimately flow all the way through our hierarchy of shit that's happening into here. We'll just do whatever, 0 to 100. I think that's technically all up to 101. I could go 99, I guess. Yeah, whatever. And then we'll go. Leave these here for reference. I'll probably delete them in a second. So make sure I do this right.
Do it wrong. Do it wrong. I'm helping.
Nope.
Small chance.
Either one. Oh, did I make those public? Probably not, because I'm stupid.
Dumb, 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 dumb.
Yeah, these all need to be. Let's just do the same thing.
Way.
Working with so much shitty old
Nope.
plain text classic ASP code at work. Do a lot of shit like this.
Nope.
Also, you type like a fucking moron.
Yay!
Done.
It's gonna be real mad about that in class.
Oh, where did I? It's this.
Yeah, you're gonna
That's
dump it.
fine. No, why? What now? Huh. Did it? Is it? It's probably because it didn't compile right in the first place. That's my guess. So the IntelliSense is not working. Maybe. Or, no, I'm just stupid. I'm double stupid. It's that, and then I need to make sure this is actually the right. This needs to be. I might make this shorter just to make it less of a fuck.
It's not obj. That.
Right. Is it the other thing I already have? Yeah, okay. Well, let's not get mad at that. That's fine.
Way.
There. Perfect.
Yay! We are become success. There. No. Need to bool.
Oh, it's just mad at the whole if. I'm surprised it flagged it that quickly. Let's just do that for now. That's not what I mean, but.
If to bool, int to bool, bool int.
And the other thing we need to check here is
Butts.
you know what? We'll just there are a million other ways we could do this too, but we're gonna do it the lazy way for right now.
Woo!
Gonna put something. Let's say here.
Vista. Windows Vista.
That, excuse me, and then we'll go fix all these. So, enemy controller is not a gunk, false.
Glass.
Gunk controller, that's totally a gunk. True. Turret, not a gunk. False. And wall, not a gunk. False.
Mm.
LU. Close all these for now, because I'm not going to need them for the moment. Close all these projectiles too, because we're not going to get to this stuff tonight, clearly. But that's fine. We've made progress.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't need this either. Goodbye.
And the enemy controller. That's the one you're on right now.
This is the one we want.
Yeah, not the one to its left is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. And so this actually justifies me breaking this out into its own function too. I'm gonna do and similarly get rid of this for now because it's still up in that other thing. That's fine. Again, there are millions of other ways to do this, but this is what I'm kind of rolling with, just because that's where my brain's at right now. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. That can stay there.
You do have a call, I believe, that is
Oh, right, this is already
knocked up. Up there.
Yeah. How are you with that?
I like clarifying.
Me too. And that's like, I know that like some people get really bent out of shape about that for some reason.
Why?
If you just do it this way, if you don't explicitly call, if you like shorthand it, or if you don't shorthand it when you can, I guess is what I'm saying. Like if you do this when you could do the shorthand, the like implicit true, people get like kind of upset about it sometimes. But
whatever.
I agree with you. I lean this way. And it just is.
I mean, it can look cleaner
it is
the other way.
fractionally easier to read.
Yeah. It makes more sense.
That's the one.
Projectile base, I believe it needs.
Get rid of you, because you don't matter.
Yeah.
Alright. That makes sense to me. And so in this one, we'll just do the gunk ones.
Brian agrees.
Oh, okay. Oh, with the
Equals.
I like it. Good man. I mean, I'm in general against people for the most part who are very much like, you could be simpler, and that's almost always true, but not.
I'm just generally against people. Verbatim. Nice.
Everybody else's. And this is the gunk one, so this is not that we want.
Shield.
Yeah, in fact, I guess I'll put...
That's not.
God damn it.
Get help. Gotcha. Can
I'll
do.
put them kind of in the same order. I think shield was first. Shield, health, ammo. And finally, coin.
No.
That and... Oh,
No. Got it.
okay.
Success.
And these I'm just gonna put like...
Parts.
spawn the thing it do.
Now you're writing comments like me. Hell yeah.
Because we're not gonna address this tonight. At least not right this moment. And then the other thing is, so, I'm just trying to make sure this makes sense in my head.
Never.
Does that make sense? If I put it like a 10, it's a 10% rate. Check my brain while I'm like...
Man, I don't know.
Or a 9, I guess. 0 to whatever.
I guess.
Like that checks out, right? Well, we'll
Think?
have to actually test it and take some notes once it's like implemented for real.
What are you doing?
Not that, just this.
There you go. I was wondering how long you're gonna keep dropping it, dragging it or whatever. No. Durston, no.
I'm pretty sure that makes sense. Because if it rolled up and it's got like a 15 or whatever, then if our value is, 15 or lower, that would check out and it would match, and then it would do the thing.
Bang.
Pretty sure that checks out. So we're gonna.
But what if they're all 0?
What do you mean?
Won't the other ones still proc for that?
These values?
Yeah.
Well, in that case, let's do.
1 to 100.
Yeah. Now you're thinking.
Because if you had said you had said the base values for a
right.
non-modified thing is 0.
You're right. Yes.
Okay.
Good looking out.
0, man.
Mm-hmm.
I told you I'm like maybe 70% here, so maybe that 70% that is here is the smarter part,
Mm-hmm.
and the normally really stupid part of me is more shut off than usual.
Actually, whatever. I think this might technically be more accurate because the top end is exclusive. But shrug. Which is like I wouldn't have coded that way. That just seems weird to me. But I'm sure there's a good reason. So good on ya, Microsoft C# devs. Okay, I think that's right.
You're just gonna put basically that code
I'm
into
just
the
gonna go ahead
into the
and do
one.
this.
Get the spawn chance too.
Yeah, I might as well, because that one's actually accurate. Yeah. All this. Do this. Grab it again. Done? Done.
Success.
Okay, so, I think that's not too shabby. I think we might call it a night there, because we're definitely not going to get this up and running tonight.
No.
And it's going to take me longer than, like, the 15-ish minutes I would kind of want to stay online. More to do, I think, much more than this for the other stuff. So I think we'll leave this for the moment. And And I don't know where we'll come back next time we stream, because I'm going to try to do some of this shit offline, but how much of it I guess we'll see. But, you know, I guess we'll find out when we get there. But this is something to start. We've laid the groundwork for, like...
building that foundation or whatever.
Yeah, right on. Got some work done. So, yeah, the start of all this is all set up. Eventually, hopefully, sooner rather than later, we'll get it implemented and start testing it for reals. But in my mind, I think this will work out. Like I said, it's not the most elegant or
ugly.
You know, whatever. It's not. There's a million ways to do different things. This is not nearly the like most concise or compact or elegant way to do it. But I'm pretty sure it'll work, and that's what we're going with because we're just trying to release a thing. So, all right. So with that, I think we're gonna call it a night. We'll see you later, Internet. As I actually look to the camera and wave at it. Gotta grab this other mouse.
I believe in you.
So yeah, we're going to call it a night. We'll be back next Thursday for more of this around the same time, 7:30ish EST. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Avengers if you're going to see it. And don't spoil it for people unless they ask you to, because that's rude.
It's very rude.
So yeah, see you later, Internet.
Bye.